Did you know there is a secret list? A list of 7 teachings that Jesus made very clear in the Gospels, but that 95% of Christians simply ignore. I'm not talking about complicated doctrines or deep theological interpretations. I'm talking about teachings of Jesus so direct that a child can understand, so practical that they would transform the world if applied. So revolutionary that they would change your life completely. Today you will find out exactly what these are. 7 teachings of Jesus that Christians rarely practice. I'll reveal each of them, explain why they're overlooked, and show you how to apply them in your real life. But before I begin, I need to ask you a direct question. Are you prepared to be confronted? Because some of these teachings of Jesus will challenge everything you thought about what it means to be a Christian. And there's more. At the end, I'll reveal which of these 7 teachings is the most dangerous to the human ego. The one that Jesus considered fundamental, but which causes the most resistance among Christians. So get ready, because after knowing these 7 teachings, you'll never again be able to pretend you didn't know what Jesus taught in truth. 2 billion Christians in the world, 2 billion people who claim to follow Jesus Christ. But there is something disturbing happening right under our noses. Most of these followers live in exactly the opposite way to what Jesus taught. I'm not exaggerating. I'll prove it to you. Jesus said in Matthew 7 verse 21, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father." Do the will. Don't just declare it. Don't just attend church. Don't just sing hymns. Do it. Here's the devastating paradox. Millions know verses about love, but life filled with hate. They preach forgiveness, but harbor decades of resentment. They talk about humility but are extremely proud. Why? How did we get to this point where knowing about Jesus became more important than obeying Jesus? The answer lies in a truth that no one wants to accept. It is easier to admire those teachings of Jesus than to practice them. It is more comfortable to study about Christ than to become like Christ. But today that ends, because you'll learn about the 7 specific teachings Jesus left. And you'll discover why each one is systematically avoided by modern Christians. And when we're done, you won't have the excuse of "I didn't know anymore." I'll start with the most radical teaching Jesus ever gave. So radical that most Christians pretend it doesn't exist. Love your enemies. Bless those who curse you. Do good to those who hate you. And pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you. Matthew 5 verse 44. Stop everything. Read that again. Love enemies. Don't tolerate. Don't just forgive. Love. Actively wish them well. Pray for their happiness. Do good things for people who have wronged you. Let me tell you a true story that illustrates how this should work. In 2006, a man entered a school in a small community and shot 10 girls, killing 5. It was a tragedy that would leave any community torn apart by hatred and a thirst for revenge. But this was a Christian community that truly followed Jesus. Do you know what they did? Immediately after the shooting, the victim's parents visited the shooter's family. Not to confront or blame, to offer forgiveness and support. They helped pay for the shooter's funeral. They consoled his wife. They cared for his orphaned children. That's it. Love for the enemy in practice. This is following literally what Jesus taught. Now, be honest. How many Christians do you know who do this? How many genuinely love people who have hurt them? How many pray for the happiness of those who have hurt them? The brutal truth is that most Christians have enemy lists longer than their prayer lists. They hold grudges like trophies. They celebrate when something bad happens to those who hurt them. Jesus called this hypocrisy. And he said something shocking. If you only love those who love you, what's the difference between you and any non-Christian? But there is a second even more difficult teaching. Peter thought he was being generous when he asked, "Lord, how many times shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him up to 7 times?" Jesus' answer must have shocked Peter. I do not say to you up to 7 times, but up to 70 by 7. Matthew 18 verse 22. 70 times 7 is not 490. It is a number that means always without limits, without conditions. The Christian forgiveness that Jesus taught does not depend on the offender's repentance. The gravity of the offense from the number of times it happened of you feeling like forgiving. It's a decision, a choice, a non-negotiable command. But here's why this teaching is so ignored. Forgiving 70*7 means you can never use the past as a weapon against anyone. You can never hold grudges as fuel for victimization. Churches are full of people who know verses about forgiveness, but carry mental lists of all the times they've been hurt. Christian couples who keep a mental archive of every fight from the last 10 years. Christian families divided by long-standing offenses that could be resolved with honest conversation and genuine forgiveness. Jesus was blunt on this point. In Matthew 6 verse 15, he said, "But if you do not forgive others their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses." It's not optional. It's a condition for receiving God's forgiveness. But true forgiveness requires something most Christians are unwilling to give: death to the ego. And this brings us to the third teaching. If you're enjoying these revelations, leave a like to show me that I should keep bringing you this kind of content. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to the channel. Now the third teaching that few practice. Truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Matthew 18 verse 3. Humble as a child. Not false humility or self-deprecation, but the genuine humility of one who recognizes his or her total dependence on God. Observe a young child. They don't pretend to know what they don't. They're not afraid to ask silly questions. They naturally trust their parents. They don't wear social masks or intellectual pride. This is the humility and faith that Jesus required of all his followers. But what do we see in churches today? Christians inflated by their own biblical knowledge. Leaders who can't stand being questioned. People who have turned faith into a competition of who knows the most, prays the loudest, and fasts the longest. Jesus hated this religious mindset. In the Sermon on the Mount, the first beatitude was, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Matthew 5:3 Poor in spirit, those who recognize their total spiritual bankruptcy, who know they deserve nothing from God, who depend completely on grace. It is the complete opposite of the arrogant Christianity we see today. Genuine humility is revolutionary because it destroys the need to compete, compare, and impress. It frees you from the prison of the religious ego. But true humility always expresses itself in a specific way. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. And your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you openly. Matthew 6 verse 34 Jesus was establishing a revolutionary principle. Faith in action true does not need an audience. He repeated this same principle for prayer. But you, when you pray, go into your room, and when you have shut your door, pray to your Father who is unseen. Matthew 6 verse 6. And for fasting, that your fasting may not be seen by men but by your Father who is in secret. Matthew 6 verse 18. Did you notice the pattern? Jesus was directly attacking performative religiosity, the spirituality of display, the faith that only exists when there's an audience. But today, we live in the age of Christian influences. Everything needs to be posted, shared, and applauded. Prayers only happen in public. Generosity only exists when someone is filming. Serve in secret means helping someone without telling anyone. Praying for people without them knowing. Give money anonymously. Do good without expecting recognition. Living your faith when no one is looking. It's the ultimate test of spiritual authenticity. What do you do when only God is watching? A practical Christian life that Jesus taught worked perfectly on Monday mornings in traffic, at home, at work. It didn't need spotlights or hashtags. And this brings us to an even more challenging teaching. Judge not that ye be not judged. Matthew 7 verse 1. This is probably the most misinterpreted verse in the Bible. Most people think Jesus was forbidding any kind of discernment or evaluation. But that wasn't it. Jesus was talking about hypocritical, condemnatory, unloving judgment. He explained in the following verses, "And why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye, but pay no attention to the plank in your own eye?" Matthew 7 verse 3. The rule is simple. Before pointing out problems in others, solve your own. Before criticizing, look in the mirror. Before condemning, examine your heart. But this is exactly the rule that Christians violate most. Churches filled with people who know exactly what's wrong with everyone else's life, but are blind to their own shortcomings. Christians who specialize in pointing out other people's sins but who have never engaged in honest self-criticism. Jesus said something devastating. With the measure you use, it will be measured back to you. Matthew 7 verse 2. The standard you use to judge others will be used to judge you. The harshness you demonstrate toward the sins of others, God will demonstrate toward yours. Do not judge. It doesn't mean being naive or accepting everything. It means acting with the same grace you would like to receive. Correcting with love, not superiority. Restore, not destroy. But there is a sixth teaching that goes straight to the heart of our selfishness. Give to everyone who asks you. And from anyone who takes what is yours, do not demand it back. And Luke 6 verse 30, lend expecting nothing in return. Luke 6 verse 35. Jesus was establishing a principle that completely destroys our capitalist mentality. Radical generosity with no expectation of return. I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about time, attention, resources, energy, knowledge. Jesus taught that his followers should have an attitude of constant giving. But here's why this teaching is so often ignored. It directly attacks our instinct for self-preservation, our need to control resources, our tendency to always calculate what's in it for me. Most Christians only help when you are guaranteed to be recognized. You know that the person deserves it. Are you sure you will not be harmed? Expect some kind of future return. Jesus called this a pagan mentality in Luke 6 verses 32 to 34. He said, "If you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what reward do you have? Even sinners do the same." True Christian generosity is unconditional, irrational, contrary to human logic. It's giving to those who can't give back, helping those who don't deserve it, lending without guarantees, serving without contracts. And that brings us to the seventh and most difficult teaching of all. If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Matthew 16 verse 24. This is the most dangerous teaching for the human ego. That's why it's the most avoided. Deny yourself. It doesn't mean being a masochist or having low self-esteem. It means choosing God's will over your personal desires. Every day in every decision, Jesus explained what this means in practice. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. Indeed, Matthew 16 verse 25, it's the central paradox of Christianity. You only find true life when you die to yourself. You only find purpose when you abandon your personal agendas. You only find happiness when you stop desperately pursuing it. But let's be honest, how many Christians live this way? How many truly submit their career, relationship, money, and time decisions to God's will? Most people treat Jesus as a personal advisor, not as their absolute Lord. They ask his opinion, but retain veto power. They want his blessing for their plans, not his plans for their lives. Deny yourself daily means choosing to forgive when you want to retaliate. Choose to serve when you want to be served. choosing to give when you want to receive, choosing to obey when you want to rebel, choosing humility when you want pride. It's the daily death of the ego. And that's exactly why few do it. But now that you know the 7 teachings, I need to ask you a crucial question. Now you know the 7 specific teachings that Jesus made very clear. Love your enemies, not just nice people. Forgive 70 times. 7. No limits, no conditions. Be humble like a child. Recognize your total dependence on God. Serve in secret. True faith does not need an audience. Do not judge. Remove the beam from your own eye first. Give without expecting anything in return. Radical and unconditional generosity. Deny yourself daily. Choose God's will over your desires. The question you need to answer now is devastating. How many of these 7 do you actually practice? Be brutally honest. Not with others, with yourself. Do you genuinely love people who have hurt you? Or do you keep lists of hurts? Do you forgive without limits? Or do you have secret conditions for your forgiveness? Are you genuinely humble? Or do you disguise pride with spirituality? Do you serve when no one is watching? Or does your faith only work with an audience? Do you judge with the same grace you'd like to receive, or are you an expert on other people's flaws? Do you give without expecting a return? Or is all generosity an investment in disguise? Do you die to yourself daily, or is Jesus just a consultant for your personal plans? These questions reveal something disturbing. You may discover that you're not as Christian as you thought. You may discover that you know about Jesus, but you don't truly follow him. And that brings us to the final revelation. Remember the promise I made at the beginning that I would reveal which of these 7 teachings is the most dangerous to the human ego. It's the 7th. Deny yourself daily. Why? Because all the other 6 depend on this. 1. It's impossible. Love enemies without dying to pride. Forgive 767 without dying for revenge. Being humble without dying to the ego. Serve in secret without dying for the need of recognition. Do not judge without dying to the feeling of superiority. Give without return without dying to selfishness. The daily death of the ego is what makes all other teachings possible. But here's the most shocking truth. Jesus said it's not optional. In Luke 9 verse 23, he made it clear, if anyone would come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me every day. Not once at baptism, not just on Sundays, every day. And now we come to the moment of absolute truth. Jesus said something that should be plastered on the wall of every church. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I say? Luke 6 verse 46. This question echoes through the centuries and reaches you today. Why do you call Jesus Lord but do not do what he taught? Why do you sing about following him but ignore his specific teachings? Why do you say you love him, but live the exact opposite of what he commanded? The choice is now yours. Will you remain an admirer of Jesus, or will you become a true follower? Are you going to continue pretending you don't know these 7 teachings, or are you going to start practicing them today? Because Jesus was very clear. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father. Do not just know, not just admire, do. If this video challenged you, share it with other Christians who also need to hear this truth. Leave a comment telling us which of these 7 teachings challenged you the most. And remember, Jesus is not interested in admirers who applaud from afar. He is looking for disciples who obey closely.